Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the United States of America, where the President Trump made lots of very interesting statements. First of all, the USA announced a major announcement on weapons for Ukraine tomorrow. The USA will make a major announcement tomorrow regarding arms supplies to Ukraine, said the US permanent representative to NATO. In his opinion, Southern European countries should more actively provide military support to Ukraine, especially within the framework of the Alliance Special Pearl program, which involves the purchase of American weapons at the expense of European countries. Later, the President of the United States of America added that he was very disappointed with the pace of the Ukrainian peace process, despite his good relations with Putin. According to the US President, Russia allegedly does not want to end the conflict. He also stated that Zelensky would request the supply of Tomahawk missiles on Friday, noting that the US has a large stockpile of these missiles. Furthermore, the President Trump added that long lines waiting for gasoline in Russia. So the President of the United States of America is currently preparing the population of the Western countries that most likely in coming days another round of escalation between Western countries and Russian Federation will take place. Most likely the United States of America will provide Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, and Zelensky will use them to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. Furthermore, we got reports that the situation in Ukraine is becoming very difficult. For example, right now in front of your screens, we can see the evening Kiev. Mayor Klitschko urged Kiev residents to prepare for a harsh winter by stocking up on warm clothing, water, and food. So the Ukrainian authorities call for Ukrainian people to leave big cities like Kiev, Dnipro, and Zaporozhye and to relocate to small towns across Ukraine. The Kiev City State Administration attributed the power outages in some areas of Kiev to a grid overload that caused a problem at one of the capital's power facilities. Furthermore, we have reports some Ukrainian deputies stated that in coming months they are waiting for the end of the conflict. Ukrainian deputy Maxim Buzhansky said he hopes the fighting will stop by the end of November. According to him, the several lawmakers, including Yulia Tymoshenko, who recently claimed that the end of the war is near, have begun receiving insider information about the parameters of how the war might conclude. Whether these predictions come true, however, remains to be seen. Furthermore, we start receiving reports that the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, began purging across Ukraine, and he started removing different mayors and different heads of different towns and cities from their positions. And the sources are saying that he is doing this with the purpose to purge the political sphere, with the purpose to remove competitors to him who can replace him or who can compete him in the president race. So the sources are saying that most likely the president elections are going to take place in coming months. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction where Russians continue their offensive operation. The sources are saying that currently there are very heavy clashes for the Uspenovka and Poltavka fortified area. The battle for these two fortified areas started almost a week ago, and since that we haven't received anything that can confirm the real and additional progress on the ground. Different mappers adjusted their maps showing that the Russians crossed the river of Yanchul, that the Russians improved their positions, but as we can see, we don't have huge changes that we used to have in August or September, which means that currently there are very heavy clashes and that most likely the Ukrainians managed to stabilize the situation. Now let's talk about the Pokrovsk direction, where the Russians also continue their offensive operation. During the previous 12 hours, different sources and mappers confirmed that the Russians indeed managed to capture the eastern bank, the eastern flank of the city of Mirnograd. I would like to remind you that during the previous 2 days, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the Russians captured the settlement of Balagan and the settlement of Kazatske, which means that in coming hours, the Russians most likely will finish the battle for the settlement of Promin, and then they will push their attention towards the southern part of the city of Mirnograd with the purpose to capture this area. And then Russians will use this territory as a main base, as a main foothold before further advancing in the northwestern direction with the purpose to establish complete control over the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. As for the Shakhovo pocket, during the previous 12 hours, we got reports that the Russians managed to recapture the settlement of Dorozhny once again. Since the beginning of the Russian offensive operation, or since the moment when the Russians managed to break through Ukraine defense in this area, the village of Dorozhny has been captured by Russia for 3 or 4 times since that moment. And the Ukrainians managed to recapture almost the same number of times as well. And today we got report that the Russians managed to capture this village once again, and based on a report that was published by neutral mappers, we have adjusted the map. Furthermore, we continue receiving reports about Russian attempts to capture and to attack the settlement of Shakhovo with mechanized group with armored vehicles and tanks. But as you can see, according to information we have, the Russians still haven't managed to take under complete control this territory. Furthermore, we start receiving updates that the Russians began their mechanized attacks along N32 and N20 roads in the direction of the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 24 hours, lots of videos were published exactly from this area, how Russians were attacking Ukrainian positions along N32 road with the dozens of vehicles, and how Ukrainians were trying to repel these attacks with FPV drones. Most of the geolocations are coming from this part of N32 road, so we are waiting for additional changes. Maybe the Russians during the previous days managed to improve their positions and to answer the settlements of Stepanovka and fortified areas to the north of the village of Yablunovka. So most likely this area is already a gray zone, and maybe in coming days we're going to receive changes exactly from this territory. As for the Sivers-Liman direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded in the area of Drobushevo and Novoselovka. Several pro-Russian resources reported that as a result of offensive operation, as a result of fast lightning attack, the first Russian groups managed to answer the northern part of the settlement of Drobushevo and to dig in deeper. Currently, there are very heavy clashes exactly for this area. The Russians are trying to dig in deeper and to force Ukrainians to fall back from this territory. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that during the previous days, the Russians were advancing to the east of the settlement of Drobushevo, trying to outflank Ukrainian main positions and to cut logistics. So it seems that the battle for Drobushevo is coming to its probably the most important and final part. Now let's talk about the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region. Today, according to information we have, a forced evacuation has been announced for 40 settlements in the Kharkiv region, according to the regional administration. These settlements include 27 settlements in the Velikoburluk, 6 in the Vikhavat, and 7 in the Shevchenchevskaya territorial communities. So the decision was made due to worsening security situation in the Kupiansk region. I would like to remind you that currently the Russians are attacking this pocket, this northeastern part of Kharkiv region from 3 directions. The Russians are trying to improve their positions in the most northeastern part, and today, according to different sources, the Russians managed to capture another tree line in this area, shortening the distance to the settlement by the name of Dvorechenska, which is located a bit further in the southeastern direction. Furthermore, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to capture almost completely the western and the central parts of the city of Volchansk. So according to different mappers, this area is already under complete Russian control, and according to these changes, the Russians approached the main Volchansk citadel, which is located in the southern part of the city. And this is the reason why the Ukrainians announced evacuation from this area, because if Russians are able to capture this citadel and to force Ukrainians to fall back, then Russians will be able to answer the Kharkiv operational space, and from this Kharkiv operational space, the Russians would be able to begin advancing in many directions, especially in the direction of the settlement by the name of Veliki Burluk. So most likely the battle for the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region is inevitable, and most likely Ukrainians would be forced to fall back at the end of the battle from this territory. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes on my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.